Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another installment of our LinkedIn Live demo series of the Reltio Connected Data Platform. My name is Jackie Colligan, and thank you so much for joining us today. This week, we're going to be exploring how the Reltio Connected Data Platform can help healthcare providers put data to work to create connected member, provider, and patient profiles to power personalization initiatives. Taking us through the demo today is going to be my colleague, Steve Singleton, who is our Senior Solutions Consultant here at Reltio. But before I hand it over to Steve, I've just got a couple of things on my end. First, if you like what you see today and you would like to set up a customized demo to see exactly how Reltio can work for you and your needs, we'd be more than happy to do that for you. You can just go to reltio.com/request-a-demo and fill out the form. And then I'll also put a direct link in the comments below. So you can just click on that. Second, we would love for this to be an interactive session. Please feel free to drop a question or any comments that you might have into the comments box below, or simply give us a thumbs up. That would be great too. So without further ado, I will go ahead and hand it over to Steve. Steve, take it away.
Thank you, Jackie. Hello, everyone. This is Steve Singleton here. As Jackie mentioned, I am a senior solution consultant with Reltio. Been with Reltio now in my 5th year, and we're going to talk a little bit today about managing and mastering data from a healthcare provider and healthcare patient or member perspective. As we start out here, let me take a minute to talk just a bit about Reltio. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but Reltio was founded in 2011. So we're currently about a 10-year-old organization. And we were the first true software as a service MDM platform in the industry. Currently today, we have over 100 customers on a worldwide basis. And as you can see, we're in excess of 300 or so employees today. Specifically, this session is targeted around managing and mastering data within the healthcare industry. And as you can see here, I've got a slide where I'm just depicting some of the typical types of entities and types of data that would typically be managed within a healthcare environment. So you see things like patients, provider, physicians, contracts, medical teams, devices, things like that are all relevant from a healthcare perspective in managing data in the healthcare environment. To isolate it just a bit more, we're going to focus today on 2 of those entity types, namely a member or patient and provider, and the associated relationships that can exist among those entity types. And again, as we get into the demonstration, which we're going to do in just 1 second here, we're going to be providing you insights into the abilities that Reltio provides to manage member or patient information and also provider information. Some of the key points that we're going to talk about is providing this or establishing this authoritative 360-degree profile for patients or providers. And we'll dig into exactly what that entails in just a moment. Be able to understand the total relationships that exist amongst those providers and patients. We'll talk a bit about our search capability and also the history and lineage and audit trail capability that we provide. So with that as a brief background of Reltio and our capabilities around managing and mastering healthcare specific information, let's dig right into the demonstration now. And some of the key topics that we're going to talk about here are managing both provider and patient information. We refer to patient and provider records as profiles. So you'll hear me use that term quite often. The relationships amongst the patient and providers, our abilities around matching and merging, which are key constructs in the master data management world. We'll take a look at the rich history and audit trail information that we provide, our collaborative capabilities, both from a workflow perspective and sort of a social collaboration aspect, and finally, being able to search for data and analyze and provide data for reporting purposes. So I'm going to back out of our PowerPoint here now and dive into one of our demonstration environments. So what you're looking at now is our main data stewardship user interface, or UI, for managing healthcare related information. Again, this is one of our standard demonstration environments. So this will give you a great example of what data could look like within your own organization, especially as it relates to managing patient information or provider information. This main UI is basically segmented or organized around 4 main views of information. We're currently on the dashboard view, which is what we're looking at right now. There's a profile view, which allows you to look at individual patient or provider profiles. We'll be there in just a moment. There's a great searching facility that we'll take a look at. And there's also the ability to create a brand new master profiles, either patient, provider, or other types of profiles, as you see here, directly from this user interface. So let's talk a little bit about the dashboard, and then we'll dig into some specific profile information for providers and patients. So the dashboard is pretty much exactly what you would expect to see on a dashboard, just some snippets of information related to the type of information that's in this particular environment. So here you see some aggregated activity over time. If I scroll down the page, some various charts and graphs related to the types of information in this environment. So things like data quality charts, both for addresses and phone numbers. If I scroll on further down, maybe member distribution, where are our members located, our patients located? And as I scroll further down, you'll see a very similar chart to where are our practitioners or providers located. So you can see here in this particular chart, and we'll zero in on this, the color coding affects or highlights, I should say, the density or the number of providers in a specific state. So for example, these darker blue states, have more providers in this particular environment. For example, North Carolina has 20,161 providers that we're managing in this particular environment. These are actionable charts, by the way. So as you want to dig into and look at specific information, let's say for providers within the state of North Carolina, I can actually just click on this. And when I click on that particular state, what you'll notice is we transition from the dashboard view over to the search view. And we've actually just executed a search within this particular environment. So you can see that we're looking now at practitioners within the state of North Carolina. So we're actually providing this sort of audit trail, or breadcrumbs, as a lot of people like to call it, for the current information that we're looking at. And you can see there are 20,161 active profiles that we're managing within the state of North Carolina that are actually classified as practitioners or providers. You have the ability to scroll up and down, look at different sorts of views of this information here. There's an ability to view this information interactively with a map. So here I can just zero in, and now you can actually see on a map here, where these particular providers are located within the state of North Carolina. There's also the ability to look at this information and give a brief snippet or preview of this actual provider profile. So for example, you've got the ability to actually, as I toggle down the list here, see a brief preview, easy for me to say, of that information for this particular provider. So let's drill in and actually take a look at some specific information here now. So we've already isolated providers for the state of North Carolina. I'm going to drill in and look for a specific provider that I like to use for demonstration purposes. And in order to accomplish that really quickly and easily, I'm just going to look at some tags. I've actually tagged a couple of these records here. And you can see now I've filtered the list down to just 2 providers, one for Brian Nishek and one for Jody Wheeler. So let's isolate and take a look at this Brian Nishek record. So all I have to do to see the profile for Brian is just simply click on that link. And now you can see that we've transitioned over to the profile view. So now you're actually looking at a master profile for this specific practitioner or provider. We tend to use those terms interchangeably here within Reltio and within our demonstration environment. So let's take a look at, some of the types of data and some of the functionality that's going to be available to you when utilizing the Reltio solution to manage and master provider information. So let's scroll up here a bit and take a look at some of the base information that we're managing for Brian. So in this particular section of the screen here, where we've labeled demographic information, you're actually looking at, sort of name and address information related to Brian. So you see a first name, middle name, last name, address information that we're managing related to Brian, phone number information. If he has a website that he would like to manage, that's available here as well. The little show more link, actually provides, as you would expect, more information about this particular provider. So things like any credentialing information, gender, date of birth, whatever is relevant to you as an individual customer for managing this type of information is available. And then I can also shrink this back, to a more concise list here. Now, some of the things that Reltio provides as out of the box or standard functionality are some data quality capabilities that allow you to make sure that the data that you're managing is accurate and up to date. Some examples of some of these data quality capabilities that we provide are in the address area. So you'll notice here, I'm just going to expand this address. You'll notice that this particular address has been validated against a valid list of U.S. Postal Service addresses, since this address is in North Carolina. So we have embedded within the Reltio solution standard out-of-the-box address verification and validation cleansing available. So as you load data into the system, we have the ability to automatically validate and verify that this is in fact an actual deliverable address according to the U.S. Postal Service. And that is in fact what all of these different segments of this address are indicating to you. For phone numbers, a very similar capability. You can see here, we provide a phone number validation, a data quality service. So the ability to identify, is this a valid phone number? And some basic metadata about it, such as this particular number, since it's a 704 area code, we can identify that that's either a fixed landline or a mobile number. In other words, not an 800 or a toll-free number. So just a couple of examples of some standard data quality validation rules that we provide out of the box for managing this information. Some of the other information here that's available to you that, again, completely at your discretion for how you want to organize and set up this information. So here, we want to know for Brian, for example, what are Brian's office hours for each day of the week. So you can see we've got a section here of the profile to indicate his office hours. A lot of times when managing providers, we also need to keep track of any industry identifications or certifications that are necessary for the provider in this particular state. Education and training information, general information such as the types of services that are provided, as well as this particular provider's specialty areas from a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary phase. So all of this information is available, and we manage this information in a real-time mode and is available for consumptions by any of your users or existing applications that need this information. I also want to point out that the organization of this information that you're looking at in this particular user interface, as well as the nomenclature that we're using, for the various segments of the screen here, are completely controlled by our customers that are using this application. So you have complete control over the organization of this information, as well as the naming of any of the individual attributes or the individual segments of the screen that you're looking at here. So that's just a little bit about some of the baseline data that we're managing for Brian. Now, there's also the ability here, and we talked about this as we started the presentation, the ability to manage relationships that exist amongst the various entity types that we're managing here. Now, I'd like to draw your attention here to this section of the screen where it's entitled Legal Entities, Patients, and HCO Affiliations. And in this example here, we're actually linking Brian, this particular profile, to other profiles that we're managing within this particular demonstration environment. So what this is telling us is that Brian has a relationship with the Atlantic Surgery Center and the Coastal Rehabilitation Medicine Clinic. in Wilmington, North Carolina. These are actually clickable links as well. So if you wanted to drill into and look at more information, let's say about coastal rehabilitation medicine, you can actually just click on that and we'll immediately transition to the master data that we're managing for this particular provider organization. So this would be, in this case here, we're representing that, Brian actually works for or has a relationship with this particular organization within the state of North Carolina. And notice also here, we have the ability to organize at a business level or an organization level, the ability to manage hierarchies of information. So you can see here that coastal rehabilitation medicine is a sub-node belonging to Atlantic Surgic Center, and Atlantic Surgic Center is a subsidiary of Atlantic Health and Wellness. So the whole concept of managing this information and presenting this information in this context within Reltio is to provide you with what we like to refer to, in the industry likes to refer to, as a 360-degree view of this provider or of this provider organization, or even the patient information that we've linked in here as well. So let's dive back. We'll just use my back button here to go back to the Brian Neshek record and talk a little bit more about some of the other capabilities that are provided by the Reltio solution. Just like I'll link to the organization that Brian has a relationship with, we can also manage and keep track of the individual patients that are being managed within our system. So here we're indicating that Brian has relationships or some type of patient affiliation with these patients that you're seeing here. And just like I did earlier, when I clicked in coastal rehabilitation medicine, I've got the ability to click in and look at any of these individual patients, or members as we call them here. So for example, Jamal, if I click there, now you're actually looking at the master profile for that member or patient. And you'll notice that as I toggle to or link to these different entity types, you'll notice that the organization of the information is a little bit different, and the type of information that we're managing is presented a little bit differently. Again, this points to that flexibility and configurability that you have to manage this information at an entity type level and present the information that's best suited for your own business users and data managers and data stewards. So again, I'm going to go back over to Brian. So we've talked a little bit about, to recap here, some of the baseline information that we're managing, some of the out-of-the-box data quality components that we make available from an address cleansing and verification and phone cleansing and verification perspective, as well as the relationship capabilities that we have in terms of managing this provider's relationships with hospitals, care facilities, as well as the patient-provider relationships that we're indicating here as well. Some other things that I want to draw your attention to related to this particular provider. Over in the far right-hand side of the screen, you've been noticing here a listing of data. This is a view of our history and audit information that we maintain automatically within the Reltio solution. So what you're looking at here is a listing or an audit trail of every single historical event or audit or transaction level event that has occurred to this particular for this particular provider or practitioner. So you can see here that I've made some updates to this record. Some of my colleagues, Dan Gage, Pete Corey, have made updates to this record. And as you click into any of these audit events or history events that you see here, if I click in and activate one of those, you'll see over here on the left side of the screen a color-coded indication of what changed as a result of this particular event that occurred. So on back in May of 2021, Pete Corey actually came in and made an update to the phone number information for this particular provider. And up here at the top of the screen, you actually can see that we're looking at a historical view of this record, or the state of this particular profile as it existed on this particular date and time. Again, this is out-of-the-box capability. There's no configuration or management needed from this audit trail perspective. This is something that's provided as baseline functionality within the application. There's also the ability to collaboratively work with other members of your team within this environment. The most obvious way to do that is to provide workflow or task management capabilities. You'll notice up here at the very top of the profile for Brian, there's actually a section here called DCR review. DCR is an acronym that stands for data change request. So in this scenario here, another of my colleagues here at Reltio, Dan Bergeron, has indicated that he would like to make a change to the Brian Nashek profile, and he's actually added a new category of office hours for Brian, indicating that on holidays that he's closed, right? So this was a request that Dan had entered to update this particular profile. I'm currently the assignee for this workflow task, and now I would have the ability to either approve this. If I approve it, it's going to be an actual change that will take effect for this Brian Nashek profile at this point in time. I could reject it, or I could make a comment and just leave it as an active workflow. So this gives you the ability to effectively manage data from more of a business process perspective, and to put in place some governance practices and governance policies as it relates to managing your profiles. There's also the capability to actually do sort of a passive collaborative approach to any of the records or profiles within the system. You'll notice here at the header level for this particular profile, there's a little green box with a number of 2 in it. If I click on that, now you're actually looking at some comments that have been made by other members of the team that are managing this data. So here you've got the ability to converse with or collaboratively chat with other members of the team, assign them tasks, and have them direct themselves to specific profiles, for analysis or additional management that may be needed for a particular profile. So that's just a little bit about some of the main profile capabilities that we provide. Now, some of the other critical components that are managed as part of the Reltio solution, in addition to this main profile, we also have the ability to look at potential matches that might exist for this particular Brian Nashek profile. What we're referring to here is, are there any other profiles in the system that are potentially the same as this one? If I click on that view there, we'll actually transition to a view known as the potential matches view. And you can see here that in fact, there is another profile that is very, very similar to the one that we've been looking at here. This one here has been identified as a potential match based on these match rules that you're looking at here. So there were several rules that were identified that indicated that this Brian record, BRYAN, is potentially the same as this one, BRIAN, based on these match rules that are in place. And, an example of a match rule, for example, this second one here, we're doing a match based on fuzzy name. So in this case here, the names are similar. They're not exactly the same, but similar. There's a fuzzy match characteristic to them. And an exact match on address line 1, and an exact or all null match on the suffix name. So this indicated that based on these conditions, these 2 records were a potential match. Now, as data stewards or data managers, you have the ability to come in and look at this, investigate this, and then make a determination, should these 2 records be merged together, or in fact, are they separate and distinct records? And you would make that decision based on visually inspecting the data within these 2 records. And I'm just scrolling down and looking at all of the data that's being managed for these 2 records. So that's a little bit about our matching or deduplication capabilities. We've also have the ability to manage data once records have been merged together, and look at that complete lineage and crosswalk of information that's critically important in a master data management environment. So here I'm going to direct our attention to this icon called the sources view within Reltio. This case here, this screen is a little busy, but is really giving you a fantastic indication of all of the different data sources that have been brought together within Reltio. This column on the far right-hand side is showing you all of the data sources from which data was provided into Reltio. So there was a provider database, there was data coming in from the DEA system, from the NPI system, from a CRM system. And then this column shows all of the various attribute values that came from those systems. And then this column is actually showing you how all of those data values were remediated or reconciled into that so-called single version of truth in the gold record here on the left side of the screen. That reconciliation or remediation process is accomplished through these various survivorship rules that you see here. And Reltio provides a complete set of out-of-the-box survivorship rules for determining which value from which source system is ultimately surviving into the operational values that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. So let's toggle back to the main profile here for just a moment and just briefly review what we've looked at. We've looked at searching capabilities. We looked at the dashboard view. We transitioned right into the main profile view here, looked at all the information that we're managing for this particular provider, as well as taking a quick look at some of the matching and deduplication capabilities and the crosswalk and source views that are available to us, as well as the history and audit trail that's available to us.